how one might reduce the prison population. And as you know, we looked at this flow chart today of how one processes through prison. I want to introduce y'all to Demel Hanna, who is going to go through his journey through that flow chart and a lot more. And he has brought some wonderful guests also. Will y'all introduce yourselves?
I'm Walter Pickett. I was part of the process with Mr. Hanna. We were cellmates a couple times during my time in prison. That's who I am.
Okay, great.
I'm Daryl Crosby. I also met these guys in the same situation, so, I mean, it's a long story.
Well, we've left an hour and 5 minutes for it.
Oh, okay.
Hey. After the brother finished, if you want to hear some more, we got plenty of info for you.
And London, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is London McKinney, and Mr. Walter Pickett here is my father. This is my baby brother, Kai.
Thank you.
Hi.
So I'm going to hand it over to Mel, and feel free to ask people anything you want. And get us started.
How you guys doing today?
Excellent.
First, I wanted to start it off by reading something, and then I go into who I am and what I've been through. Okay, 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon of light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of captivity. But 100 years later, we must face the tragic fact that the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lies on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. One American society finds himself in exile in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize an appealing condition. In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on their promissory note, insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in this great vault of opportunity of this nation. So we have come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon the demand the riches of freedom and security of justice. We have also come to this hollow spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drugs of gradualism. Now is the time to make real promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to open the doors of opportunity to all of God's children. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment and to underestimate the determination of the Negro. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not the end, but a beginning. Those who hoped that the Negro needed to blow off steam and would now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwind of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst of freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on a high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy, which has engulfed the Negro community, must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone, and as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are seeking the devotees of civil rights. When will we be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels and highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and the Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote for. No, we are not satisfied, and we would not be satisfied until justice rolled down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of the great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. So, that's Martin Luther King. At first, when I really embarked on my mission of learning about civil rights and stuff like that, I really didn't agree with Martin Luther King's theory of nonviolence. 1997, December 20th, I was apprehended on suspicion of robbery. So me and a friend of mine at the time, we was taken to a precinct, I believe 85th and Cottage Grove. So during that investigation, he decided to tell them that he had some information regarding the murder. And so from him telling them that, they wanted to talk to me. Well, I was a street person. I had nothing to talk about. So they did further investigation, and he divulged some information to them, which resulted in me being charged with first-degree murder and armed robbery. Well, I was taken to the county, and I didn't know how the process went. I went before a judge. The judge said, you're going to be given a bond of $500,000. I was poor. I'm like, I didn't do anything with $500,000. I can't meet those demands. So I was taken to the county. I was placed in Division 11. At the time, that was a supermax division. This is high crime individuals, so, like I say, I was a street person, so I wasn't scared. It was more anxiety. I wasn't nervous. It was more anxiety because I had never been in prison before, it became during the trial was surprising because the way they described me, so villainous, they couldn't believe I didn't have a record. So, I said in the count, well, I was going to court the first 2 weeks every day. Like, I was like, why was I going to court every day? I didn't know how the process worked. I didn't know how the grand jury system worked. I found all this out during my 18 years and 3 months of incarceration, how everything works. But,
How old were you?
well, when I went in, it was 2 days for my 18th birthday. My birthday is December 22nd. I got locked up December 20th. So it was 2 days for my 18th birthday. So while I sat in the county for 16 months, I went to trial 10 months into my incarceration. I went to trial 10 months into my incarceration. First, I had to pick a jury. I started my jury process October 19th. When I look up, that means I'm thinking. I'm trying to go back to that moment. So I picked my jury October 19th, 1998. So, they tell us it's a jury of our peers. That's what they tell us, but it wasn't a jury of my peers, because the jury was made up of 14, because 2 was alternate and only 3 blacks. You know, so it wasn't a jury of my peers, even though I grew up in a diverse neighborhood. You know, I preferred the all-black jury, because that's how I thought maybe I would have a chance, and maybe they would understand, you know, some of the complexities of the case, right? Well, the trial lasted from, the jury was sworn in October 21st, that Wednesday, and the trial lasted to October 26th. They deliberated for about four hours. They came back with a guilty verdict. I couldn't believe it, because my case surrounds around my co-defendants, you know, saying that I had sent them to go commit a robbery, which resulted in a murder. Now, during the time of the murder, it's documented. I was in school. You know, it's documented. After I went to school, I went to the YMCA. You know, but in Illinois, that don't mean anything. If somebody say you did something, and they can partially prove that you had the authority to send somebody to do that, you could be found guilty of accountability. And accountability is a theory that they had crafted back in the 80s and the 90s, which basically says if they can prove that you have some affiliation with a group, they call them gangs now, we call them organizations when I was in it. If they can prove that you have some affiliation in a group and you have some rank, some authority in that group, then they can find you guilty and they can say you're responsible for the actions of others, which is what they did with me, right? So I was found guilty October 26, 1998, and I was sentenced somewhere, I can't remember the exact date, but I was sentenced in September 1999. So I awaited my sentencing. You know, I awaited my sentencing. So 1999, I was sentenced originally to 45 years in prison. Now, you know, I couldn't see 45 years. I didn't even know what that meant. But I knew I wasn't going to kill myself, right? I knew that, you know, whatever it meant, I was going to be a man, and I was just going to deal with it. And whichever way I was. So, you know, while you in the county, you get like, they give you like, you know, different guys you come in contact with. They give you a blueprint on how to survive in prison. You know, the 3 basic rules is never tell on anyone. You know, mind your own business. You know what I mean? And don't be an instigator, right? So I ascertained that information, and there was the 3 rules that I went down with. So, you know, when I came to prison, now prison is violent, but it's not all violent, right? Because you probably watch Lock Up and you probably think prison is just violent. Well, it's not all violent. You know what I mean? That's just what they want the public to see. So whenever they come up with a new bill to get tough on crime, the public would agree with it, because that's what y'all see, right? So when I entered prison, Stateville, which is one of the 3 max joints in Illinois. I went to Stateville. I was 19. So my perspective was, I'm not going to let nobody rape me. You know, I'm not going to let nobody punk me. So whatever I got to do to secure my manhood, that's what I'm going to do. So at times I was violent, you know, because I wanted to survive. And I didn't want nobody to turn me into a woman. And it happens, right? So, you know, I didn't understand the appeal process. Let me go back. Because I was poor, I couldn't afford a lawyer. So the system appointed me a lawyer, public defenders, right? Now, I'm not going to just desecrate or slander all public defenders, because some of them fight for you. They do. You know, some of them fight for you, but some of them cut deals, you know, with the prosecutor or with the judge. They have relationships with the prosecutor. They all went to law school. Well, you give me him, I'll cut a deal with the other guy for you. They cut backbone deals. This is just the reality of the system, right? So I don't think my particular attorney cut a deal. I just think, you know, the jury, and these are, you know, when you pick a jury, these people haven't been to law school, right? The judge tried to interpret to them or convey to them how they should interpret the law, but you can't expect someone that's never been to law school to interpret the law or just really understand common sense when it comes to the law. So I think that's why I was found guilty, because these people was just ignorant to the law, as I was at the time. I didn't understand the legal terms, the legal jargon that they use. I didn't know. They using these 20-letter words. I didn't know what the hell they were saying, right? But as, 18 years waned on, I used to help people with their law work, but I get to that. So, when I went down, it's just a waiting game, because you hoping that who's ever going to hear your appeal can really see that you're innocent, right? You hoping that. That's what a lot of us hope. A lot of brothers been locked up 30 years. Some of them, unfortunately, was murdered on death row and they were innocent, So I'm hoping. So I'm interacting with, older gentlemen that has been locked up 20, 30 years. And so one guy, because I was in my madness. I was just trying to really just fortify my way through prison. I couldn't see 2022, which was my original out date, so I was just like, whatever, y'all got some weed, I'm just trying to get by because it's hell, right? So an old guy had told me, well, he asked me a question, because I used to go to the law library just to get extra cookies and stuff, right? So he had asked me, he said, man, you want to go home? I said, yeah, I want to go home. What type of question you ask somebody in prison? So he like, well, every time you come to the law library, you don't do nothing. You don't look at no books. You just come over here to get cookies. So I'm like, yeah, you're right, but, I want to go home. Yeah, he like, so, okay, I'm going to teach you the law if you want to learn it. Because don't expect your appeal attorney to do what the attorney didn't do for you when you was in the county. You got to get in there and learn them books. You got to get in there and break the language down. You got to get in there and fight. Just the same way you fought to get to prison, you got to fight with that same might to get out. So I said, okay. So I started going, I would come. He would basically, the first thing he did was gave me a dictionary, and he said, read this dictionary, man. The same way people read their books in college, or a person that's religious read the Bible, read the dictionary. Start from A and go all the way back. So, that's what I did. Now, initially, I was just trying to impress people. So, I read the dictionary and I say to my fellow, prisoners, I just be jotting words off. Man, that's balderdash, man. That's preposterous, man. He'd be like, so what you using these words? This prison, right? Like this, right? Like whatever. So I started really liking that I was impressing myself upon them. So I said, I like this, man. I like being able to, absorb these words and really acclimate them in my everyday conversation with guys, right? Because intelligence, even in prison, generates respect. So I really started reading, different dictionaries, and I really started just self-educating myself, because in prison, well, not all prisons, but particularly the maximum institutions, Stateville and Menard, they ain't got nothing but a GED program, right? And the waiting list is just so long. It's ridiculous. Like 2-3 years waiting list. It's ridiculous. So I would just really, guys is always having their family members send them books. You able to go to the law library, to the library and get books. So that's what I would do. And, different officers, because I had a routine. I'd wake up, at 8, 9 o'clock, and I would construct my own college, right? Because I had seen Malcolm X do this when he was in the joint, right? And you ever get a chance to watch his movie? So I would have my psychology class. I was the professor and the student. I would have my economics class. I was the professor and the student. And I would have a business class. I was the professor and the student, right? So that's what I would do the first 3 hours of my day. And then if we had recreational, I would go to rec, give me a little workout, whatever, play a little ball, come back, and that's the end. You know, behind Stateville and Menard, they're only letting you out once, right? So you in the cell, literally 21 hours a day, literally. You know, you going to child twice, child will be 30 minutes, they go give you a rec, and you're not getting rec every day. You're getting rec maybe 3-4 times a week. So, you know, that was my routine for years, you know, and then, you know, I was able to give back 10 years of my sentence. They gave me 35 for the murder and 10 for the armed robbery, and they ran it consecutively. Now, consecutively mean they ran it wild. So 35 plus 10. They were supposed to run it concurrent, meaning the 35 eats up the 10, which is what they did on appeal. That was the justice that was rendered in my favor on appeal. They just vacated the 10 years and left me with 35. So 35, because I was under the old law, which is you get day for day, you do 50% of your time. So if you get 50 years, you did 25 back then. It's no more day for day. If they give you 50, you're down in prison, right? That's how it goes, it's 100%. You know, you got guys in prison today that has done 40 years, and they still look good, right? That's if the soy haven't killed them, because they feeding us that soy stuff, and it's really, really affecting the body. You know what I mean? You got guys in there, you know, with breasts. You got guys in there, they have feminine tendencies. Their hormones, their equilibrium is all off.
Colostomy bags.
All type of stuff. You know what I mean? So it's the food that they feeding us is horrible. But Blagojevich, you know, before he was indicted of that crime, he had signed something like a 10-year contract for the soy. So I don't even think the contract has went out yet. You know what I mean? I think he signed in like 2007, so it's ridiculous. Guys, I mean, it's like accelerating old timers that was already sick. It's like the soy is accelerating their death. You know, it's that bad. But anyway, I was able to give back 10 years, you know, so they automatically sent me to Lawrenceville, right? So Lawrenceville was a medium security. But it wasn't a medium security, because Lawrenceville, you know, you only out your cell there like maybe 3-4 hours. You know what I mean? And I mean, the yard is like a parking lot. You know, they got a basketball rim, they had no weights. Only thing was good about that, the educational opportunities were vast. So that was the pro about Lawrenceville. But, you know, a lot of people, I would talk to people when I was in prison, and I would ask people about, you know, is there still racism exists? And some people be like, no, it's cool. Especially when Obama, right, took office, right? Post-racial America. Go to prison. We weren't experiencing no post-racial America in prison. You know what I mean? Racism is alive, and you being called a nigger, you know, and what you gonna do? You know, what you gonna do? You can react violently. They go react violently, you know, and you might not wake up. You know, you might be beaten so bad, you might be so traumatized that you may think nigger is your name going forward, right? So that's the reality of prison. But, you know, as things progressed for me throughout the 18 years, my refuge became really my writing. You know, I started to write a lot. You know, that became cathartic for me. And just going to school. You know, I got my GED. You know, from there, I entered college programs that the institution had to offer. I got my custodial maintenance certificate, a certificate of computer technology. My greatest accomplishment, I got my associate's degree in liberal studies. So, you know, I always tell people that rehabilitation is a choice. Like the prison don't make you go to school. Like they don't make you go to college. The majority of individuals in prison don't go to school, right? My co-defendant, unfortunately, did 17 years. He didn't get his GED because this is not something that the institution enforces. It got to be something that you want for yourself. So education became that beacon of light. As I read books and I read about how our forefathers, you know, craved, wanting to read, which was illegal in this country. And as I started reading, I started seeing, why they wanted to read. Because reading and education, for me, it allowed me to be free. Like, I was able to escape prison. You know what I mean? Because I had education and I had a mind. So I was able to do my time in my mind. I didn't allow it to really wane on me like a lot of individuals. I've seen people, I've talked to guys, and the next day they hanging in their cell. They did, right? And that is a reality, especially in Pontiac. I've been to Pontiac, and Pontiac is all segregation institution, right? And I had a friend that went to Pontiac. Before he went to Pontiac, he was sane. I mean, we would talk on the gallery. He used to always talk about his son, and then a year later we had split. He went to Pontiac, I went to Lawrence, but years later, him particularly, we didn't intersect, but some friends of his intersected. I inquired about him, and they told me he killed himself in Pontiac, and I just couldn't believe that, because him and I had bonded, and I just couldn't believe that. And when I got to Pontiac, because I tell y'all about that too. This is what they do. People in prison that have intelligence. But when I got to Pontiac, Pontiac, it's just an evil spirit in Pontiac. If y'all ever able to go down there, it's just the moment I hit Pontiac, it just something like overcame me. And I had heard a lot of stories about Pontiac. This is where they send all our mental health people. They closed down Tinley Park, they're in prison. And in Pontiac, there's so many people down there with mental health issues. When you have someone that literally plays with his feces, right? Y'all, the general public could say he's crazy. Well, he's not crazy. He's sick. He's mentally sick. When you have someone that'll literally take the wires out of the wall and inject them into his genital, he's not crazy. He's sick, right? He's trying to get to Dixon because Dixon has been pegged as this institution that is not so hard, right? It's not so hard. So everybody in prison tries to get to Dixon because you have a lot of movement, etc., right? So, I want to talk about retaliation in prison. Well, in 2012, I had wrote a grievance on a counselor. Now, the counselor, she was a counselor, and she sat on the committee board. Now, the committee board, when you get a ticket, let's say I was late for my cell. They closed the door, and I didn't get in my cell on time. They write me a ticket for unauthorized movement, right? I go hit that ticket. So I explained to him, the officer closed the door. I couldn't get that, man. And I jogged towards the door. He closed it. What do you want me to say? Well, we're going to fire you. We're going to terminate you from your assignment. My assignment at the time, I was the custodial, I was the janitor in the education building. So I thought that what she did was wrong. So I wrote a grievance on her. Now, the grievance is the only really weapon that we have in prison, right? If I feel that I've been wrong, right? So I wrote a grievance on her. In her anger, she wrote me up for writing a grievance on her and said I made threats in the grievance. So they came and they escorted me to the segregation unit. So in segregation, now I know the law. I said, well, I have a First Amendment right, to grieve issues that I think is wrong. I told the warden this. The warden said, yeah, you're right, yeah, but I get back to you. Well, 30 days later, after I completed my segregation sentence, he didn't get back to me. I filed a grievance for them sending me to say for filing a grievance, right? To Springfield. Now, Springfield is it's a board in Springfield that really is supposed to be equal, right? So once you have went through the institutional process of your grievance, they send the grievance back, you send it to Springfield, which I did. Springfield ruled in my favor. They said that I didn't use threatening language in the grievance. I didn't intimidate anyone in the grievance. Y'all must expunge that ticket from his master file, right? But the damage was already done. I had already did 30 days in segregation.
What is segregation?
Well, segregation is solitary confinement, right? You either in a cell by yourself every day. You get 1 day out. In Pontiac, you get 1 day out for 2.5 hours. In Pontiac, you're in a kennel. And I'm emphasizing kennel. A dog kennel, literally. Right? I can walk. This is how big the cage is in Pontiac. This walk right here. About turn right here. Turn right here. This is my cage. I'm in this cage. They say this suffice for recreation. You got a pull-up bar. If you like doing pull-ups, you can do pull-ups. But that is your recreation for the week, right? That's solitary confinement in Pontiac.
I thought the law was. I was a little confused when you said that in the previous prison in Statesville you spent 21 hours a day.
Yeah.
I thought that only applied when you were in solitary.
Well, it should apply,
Okay.
but it doesn't. Nobody cares. It doesn't. So literally in Stateville, let's say we got yard today. Today is Thursday. We got rec at 8 o'clock, right? We get up. We go to rec from 8 to 8:45, right? That's 45 minutes. We come back. We got child at 10:30 because everything in prison is monotonous. Everything. You know when you're going to child, right? If you get a visit, you know how long the visit gonna be. It's gonna be for an hour in Stateville, right? So we go to child at 10. So I already got 45 minutes. We go to child at 10. Go to child from 10, where we get there at 10:15, stand there at the most 45 minutes, right? So that's an hour and 30 minutes I'm out. I'm back in the cell until we go to child at nighttime. Breakfast is eaten in your cell. You don't walk to breakfast. Breakfast is eaten in your cell. So I go to dinner at night, 5 o'clock. I'm in dinner from 5 to 5:45. What's that, 2 hours and 15 minutes? You ain't coming back out that cell. That's how long you getting out that cell. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Now, it's different when you go to medium facilities. 2 hours and 15 minutes just applies Stateville and Menard because these are maximum institutions and we're violent and we must be kept caged, right? That's their perspective. That's their opinion, right? So, retaliation. So I filed a grievance to Springfield. Springfield said y'all must expunge the ticket from his master file.